Hi everyone, I'm Will Burns from your Property Associates and welcome to another episode of Building Better Investors. The aim of this series is simple. It's to help property investors, developers and sourcers make better decisions by understanding what really happens from purchase through to project completion. In the last episode, we looked at why choosing a builder is an investment decision and not just a simple matter of accepting the lowest figure. In this episode, we're going to look at the information a builder should be provided before being asked to price a project. We're going to look at the project brief, the scope, drawings, specification and site information, and we're going to explain how you can turn them into a practical tender pack. Now, one of the most common mistakes on residential project is asking for a fixed price before the work has properly been defined. As an investor, you may walk around the property with a builder and say you want a new kitchen, a new bathroom, a full rewire, a new boiler, new flooring and to decorate throughout. Now that may be enough for an early budget assessment or estimate, but it's not going to be dependable for the final price. The builder has to fill every gap using assumptions, and different builders will use different assumptions. We'll come to different conclusions. So take the phrase new kitchen for instance. One contractor may allow for basic units, a laminate worktop and installation only, whereas the other contractor may allow for the removal of the old kitchen, waste disposal, the plaster repairs, the upgraded electrics and appliances. They may include for the flooring, decoration and allow for a higher product specification. So both could honestly say that they've priced the kitchen, but they've priced it completely differently and you've come to two different estimates. Now, a recent example that I can think of where this has made a huge difference was actually on a commercial project where a project manager had asked two different contractors to build a new office in an existing office space. Now, one of the contractors done a site visit, one of them just priced it off a drawing. The one who come on a site visit realised that there was sound insulation above and below the offices that was already existing. Now, the contractor that didn't come to site didn't know that, so he didn't allow for that in his price. So contractor that come to site was around £6,000 more expensive, so the project manager went with the cheaper one. Now, once the offices were built, the occupier of that office made several complaints because people outside the office could hear the conversations he was having inside with his clients. Now, when the project manager reviewed why this was happening, he then realised that actually they hadn't allowed for the sound insulation. So it ended up costing around £10,000 to get a contractor back in out of hours to install the sound insulation. So yeah, that's a recent example for me. That cost an extra 4k, 3.5k. It's not massive, but it's just an example of where things can go wrong if you don't give specific requirements. So what do we need to give our builders? The first thing we should be giving our builders is a project brief. This should explain what the finished property needs to achieve. Is it a durable buy-to-let refurbishment, a high quality resale, a HMO conversion, a serviced accommodation unit, or is it going to be a family home? The contractor really needs to understand what the outcome is, not just list of tasks. The next thing would be a scope of works. Now, this will describe what must be completed. For a straightforward refurbishment, it can be broke down room by room, trade by trade, or building element. The format matters less than making sure that the scope is clear, complete, and easy to price. So as long as every builder understands exactly what they need to price, it doesn't really matter what order you put it in or how you group the tasks or items together. So instead of writing refurbished bathroom, for instance, the scope may say remove existing fittings, change from a bath to a shower, put a vanity unit in, tile the floor and tile a third of the wall, 2/3 of the wall, and then paint the rest. Okay, so that would be defining exactly what you wanted within there. You'd also may need to include for ventilation in a bathroom. You may need to allow for laminate to go on the floor before you lay tiles and stuff like this. So that all needs to be detailed in the scope. Okay, then comes the specification, and that will define the required products, the performance of the products, and the level of finish that you want the products to be. So it reduces the risk that one contractor may price a cheaper product to get the job, as opposed to another contractor pricing an expensive one to make it, more desirable. So for instance, on a rental refurbishment, you may specify durable contract flooring, standardised ironmongery, and readily available replaceable sanitary ware. On a resale project, the visual finish and product selection may carry more weight. So neither approach is automatically right or wrong. So the important point I'm trying to make here is that the contractor needs to know exactly what you expect. Now, in instances where the layout may change, there's structural adjustments or services changing, the tender information should include the relevant design documents. Now, the documents may include existing plans, proposed plans, the structural details, drainage information, any internal layout changes, electrical layouts, the window and door schedule, and then finally a finishing schedule. So do not assume that an architectural plan answers every construction question, because what tends to happen is they'll be packaged separately. So a layout drawing won't show the position, it might show the position of an opening, but it won't define the steel requirement, the temporary works that are required, the fireproofing around it, or the sequence to create it. So just bear that in mind, that it's a full package that you sort of need to give to the builder to be able to get a full price back. The contractor also needs relevant information about the existing property and the site. So that may include asbestos information, any surveys that have been carried out, dump surveys for instance, any known defects, any service locations where they enter the property for instance, the stopcocks, the isolation valves. It may show access restrictions to the site, if there's parking, what the waste arrangements may be. Can we leave a skip outside? Do we need a weight and load? What are the neighbours like? What are the working hours? Are there restrictions on the noise times? Is there storage space? And whether any other part of the building remains occupied, for instance, so if you're working in a block of flats. So the information we just mentioned also links back to the client duties we discussed in the CDM series. It's the information that should be provided to designers and contractors at the pre-construction stage. Now, when you're providing information, you also need to be clear about the status of any approvals. So if planning is required, has it been granted? Are there any conditions outstanding? Has building control been appointed? Is a party wall process required? Is there any consent needed from either a lender or freeholder? And now these don't necessarily need to be managed by the builder, be managed by yourself, but they do need to be aware of this information because it could affect the scope and essentially the program start date. So it's quite critical that this information is provided alongside all the other relevant information we've just discussed. Now, a practical tender pack for residential refurbishment might contain something along the lines of a short tender instruction explaining the return date and the required documents, project brief and the scope of works, the latest drawings, specifications and schedules. It could include surveys, reports and all the relevant pre-construction information, the programme expectations and if there's any key dates they need to be aware of. Pricing schedule should be sent to each contractor so that when they return their price, it's in a similar format and easy to cross-reference. And also, you want to send over a document register showing the titles of each document or drawing, the revision numbers and the issue dates. Now the last point is extremely important, because if drawings change during a tender period, you need to issue a revision formally and keep a record of it. Otherwise, what tends to happen is one contractor may price one revision whilst another contractor prices the other, and the result will total into completely different comparables. So all the drawings, as soon as they change, must be sent to the relevant parties and documented, so that there's no confusion. It may seem like there's a lot of paperwork involved, but the objective isn't just to produce paperwork for the sake of it. It's to make the scope visible, reduce assumptions, and give each contractor a fair opportunity to price the same job. It also saves you time and additional costs later on. So I suppose the key takeaway is this: a builder can only price the information they've been given. So the clearer the brief, the scope, the drawings, the specification and the site information, the more reliable and comparable the quotations are likely to be. All right. Now, in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to run the tender process properly. We will go from selecting suitable contractors to managing site visits and any questions you should be having and what you should expect on a tender return. Now, to make sure that you don't miss it, follow along. Until the next time, I'm Will Burns. Plan better, build smarter, invest safer.